Washington, D.C., July 20, 2023. The Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government convenes in the Rayburn House office building. Camera shutters. Click in measured rhythm. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. sits at the witness table, hands folded, facing a semicircle of elected officials. He has been called to testify about censorship and free speech in America. What follows is not a hearing about policy. It is a confrontation about reputation. Representative Daniel Goldman holds the floor. Goldman is a former federal prosecutor from the Southern District of New York. He spent years building cases, examining witnesses, leveraging the authority of the state against defendants. He carries that posture into Congress. His net worth has been estimated in the hundreds of millions. He did not enter politics from community organizing or local office. He entered from the upper tier of American legal and financial power. On this day, he brings the tools of the courtroom into the hearing room. Goldman's questioning does not open with a question. It opens with a declaration. He holds papers in his hand. He reads from them. The words are attributed to Kennedy. Goldman's voice rises. He uses a specific word to characterize the statements he has just read. The word is despicable. He repeats it. He does not ask Kennedy to clarify. He does not invite explanation. He declares the statements evidence of a moral failing, evidence of bigotry, evidence of unfitness for public consideration. The framing is complete before Kennedy has spoken a single word in response. This is the architecture of the modern political trap. It does not rely on argument. It relies on curation. Goldman has selected quotations from Kennedy's public record. He has removed them from their surrounding context. He has presented them in isolation. He has labeled them. The label does the work. Once a statement is called despicable, the content of the statement becomes secondary. The accusation becomes the fact. The audience is not asked to evaluate whether the characterization is accurate. They are asked to accept that it has been made by a congressman on the record. Under the seal of official proceedings. Goldman continues. He does not pause for response. He reads another quotation. He characterizes it. He reads another. The rhythm is prosecutorial. Statement, accusation. Statement, accusation. The technique is familiar to anyone who has watched a trial. The prosecutor does not need the defendant to confess. The prosecutor needs the jury to see the defendant as someone who would commit the crime. The evidence is less important than the atmosphere it creates. Goldman is not building a logical case. He is building a psychological one. Kennedy sits. He does not interrupt. He does not raise his voice. He does not object. This is notable. Many witnesses in his position would react defensively. They would attempt to interject, to correct the record in real time, to reclaim control of the narrative. Kennedy does not. He waits. His face remains neutral. His posture does not change. This is not passivity. This is discipline. He understands that interruption would be characterized as evasion. He understands that emotion would be characterized as instability. He waits for his turn. When Goldman finishes reading, he yields time for a response. The yield is brief. Kennedy begins. His tone is even. He does not match Goldman's intensity. He does not mirror the accusation. Instead, he addresses the content. He provides context. He explains that the quotations Goldman read were taken from longer statements. He explains that those longer statements were about specific scientific studies. He explains that the studies in question examined biological differences in disease susceptibility across populations. He explains that discussing such studies is not an endorsement of racism, but an engagement with peer-reviewed scientific literature. He cites the sources. He names the journals. He describes the methodology. This is a different kind of response. It does not operate on the emotional register Goldman established. It operates on the factual register. Kennedy is not defending his character. He is defending his accuracy. He is not asking the committee to believe he is a good person. He is asking them to verify what he actually said. This distinction matters. Goldman's approach assumes that moral condemnation is sufficient. Kennedy's approach assumes that documentation is necessary. Kennedy continues. He notes that one of the quotations Goldman read was about a study published in a medical journal examining variations in a CE2 receptor expression across ethnic groups in relation to COVID-19. He notes that the study was conducted by scientists, not by him. He notes that he was summarizing the findings of that study, not advocating for any policy based on race. He notes that Goldman's characterization of the summary as despicable conflates the reporting of data with the endorsement of discrimination. He does not say Goldman is lying. He says Goldman is misrepresenting. This is a critical distinction. It leaves room for error rather than malice. It keeps the focus on the record rather than on personal attack. Goldman does not respond to the clarification. He does not acknowledge the context Kennedy has provided. He does not ask a follow-up question about the studies Kennedy mentioned. He does not challenge the accuracy of Kennedy's description. He does not produce evidence that Kennedy's summary of the scientific literature was incorrect. Instead, Goldman looks at the clock. He notes that his time has expired. He thanks the chair. He stops talking. The exchange ends. This is the escape hatch. Congressional hearings operate under strict time limits. Each member is allotted a specific number of minutes. When those minutes expire, the member's questioning ends. This procedural rule exists to ensure fairness and efficiency, but it also provides a mechanism for tactical retreat. If a line of questioning becomes uncomfortable, if a witness provides an answer that undermines the premise of the question, if the narrative begins to collapse, the clock offers an exit. The member can simply note that time has run out. No explanation is required. No concession is necessary. The accusation remains on the record. The refutation remains on the record. But the questioner is not obligated to engage with the refutation. He can move on. What happened, according to the transcript, is this. Goldman read quotations. He labeled them despicable. Kennedy provided context. Goldman did not challenge the context. Goldman's time expired. Goldman left the floor. The exchange occupies fewer than 10 minutes of the hearing, but those 10 minutes reveal a structure that repeats across contemporary political discourse. The structure is this: accusation without engagement, condemnation without refutation, exit without resolution. The record is the weapon both men rely on, but they rely on it in opposite ways. Goldman relies on the record as ammunition. He extracts statements from it. He presents them as evidence of wrongdoing. He assumes that the extraction is sufficient, that the quotation speaks for itself, that the audience will accept his interpretation as authoritative. Kennedy relies on the record as defense. He returns to it. He expands it. He places the extracted statements back into their original context. He assumes that the full record will exonerate him, that the audience will see the difference between what he said and what Goldman claims he said. Both men believe the record serves their purpose. Only one of them is correct. Kennedy understands this. His response is not legalistic. It is He does not say objection, Your Honor. He says, let me provide the full context. He does not appeal to a judge. He appeals to the record. He trusts that the record, when examined in full, will show that Goldman's characterization is inaccurate. This trust is either naive or strategic. If it is naive, Kennedy is underestimating the power of narrative over documentation. If it is strategic, Kennedy is betting that a portion of the audience will take the time to verify his claims. He is betting on a kind of diligence that is rare in modern media. Consumption. Goldman's retreat is the most revealing moment of the exchange. He does not say, I disagree with your characterization. He does not say the context does not change the meaning. He does not say the studies you cite are irrelevant. He does not engage. He exits. This could be interpreted in two ways. First, his time genuinely expired, and procedural rules required him to stop. Second, he recognized that continued engagement would undermine his initial accusation. Both interpretations are plausible. The transcript does not reveal which is correct, but the effect is the same. The accusation stands. The refutation stands. The questioner does not reconcile them. This is the function of the despicable label. It does not need to be proven. It only needs to be stated. Once stated, it enters the record. Once in the record, it can be cited. Once cited, it can be repeated. The repetition creates the appearance of consensus. Multiple sources report that Goldman called Kennedy's statements despicable. Fewer sources report what Kennedy said in response. Fewer still report the full context of the original statements. The audience is left with the impression that something despicable was said, even if they do not know what it was. Even if the characterization is disputed. Kennedy's background is relevant here. He comes from one of the most famous families in American history. His uncle was president. His father was attorney general. He carries a name that is synonymous with Democratic Party politics. But he has spent decades outside the mainstream of that party. These positions have made him a controversial figure. They have also made him a target. Goldman's line of questioning is not an isolated event. It is part of a broader effort to discredit Kennedy by framing his statements as dangerous, irresponsible, or bigoted. The question is whether the framing is accurate. Goldman believes it is, but belief is not evidence. Goldman's belief that Kennedy's statements are despicable does not make them despicable. It makes them statements that Goldman considers despicable. The distinction matters. If the statements are objectively despicable, if they advocate for violence, if they promote hatred, if they distort facts with malicious intent, then Goldman's characterization is justified. If the statements are contextually defensibly, they reference legitimate scientific research. If they raise questions about institutional power, then Goldman's characterization is not justified. It is simply an accusation. Kennedy provides evidence for his interpretation. He cites the studies. He names the authors. He describes the findings. He explains why he summarized them. This evidence can be checked. The studies exist. They are published. They are available. The question is whether anyone will check them. Goldman does not check them in the hearing. He does not produce a scientist to testify that Kennedy's summary was inaccurate. He produces only his own characterization. He asks the committee, and the public, to trust that characterization, but the record can be misrepresented by anyone. Authority does not prevent misrepresentation. Wealth does not prevent misrepresentation. The only thing that prevents misrepresentation is documentation. Kennedy offers documentation. Goldman offers interpretation. The hearing does not resolve which is more reliable. It simply records both. Kennedy's response rejects the framing that disagreement is a moral failing. He does not accept that his views are disqualifying. He does not accept that raising questions about scientific studies is evidence of bigotry. He insists on the right to speak, to explain, to provide context. He insists that the audience is capable of evaluating his statements for themselves. This insistence is itself a challenge to the prevailing model. It assumes that speech is not inherently dangerous. It assumes that context matters. It assumes that people can hear controversial ideas without being corrupted by them. This is the structure of the trap. The trap is not sprung by catching Kennedy in a lie. The trap is sprung by creating the appearance of wrongdoing, then denying Kennedy the time to fully dismantle that appearance. If Kennedy had 10 minutes to respond, he could walk the committee through each study, each quotation, each context. But he does not have 10 minutes. He has the remainder of Goldman's time. He has the seconds. Goldman chooses to yield. This asymmetry is built into the hearing format. The questioner controls the clock. The witness responds within the time allowed. Kennedy's decision to remain calm under this pressure is tactically sound. If he had become angry, that anger would have been cited as evidence of instability. If he had refused to answer, that refusal would have been cited as evidence of guilt. If he had attacked Goldman personally, that attack would have been cited as evidence of desperation. Kennedy does none of these things. He answers directly. He provides evidence. He does not editorialize. He simply corrects the record. What happened is that an accusation was made and not sustained. This is important. Many accusations in political discourse are never tested. They are made, repeated, and accepted. This accusation was tested. Kennedy responded. Goldman did not counter-respond. The absence of a counter-response is itself a piece of evidence. It suggests that Goldman either could not refute Kennedy's explanation or chose not to. Either way, the accusation was not sustained. It was not proven false, but it was not proven true. It remains an accusation, nothing more. The hearing ends. Kennedy leaves the witness table. Goldman returns to his office. The transcript is published. The video is posted online. Millions of people watch clips of the exchange. The permanent nature of the congressional record is the only constant. The transcript will remain in the National Archives. Researchers, historians, journalists, and citizens can access it. They can read what was said. They can compare the accusation to the response. They can evaluate the evidence. This accessibility does not guarantee accuracy in public perception, but it guarantees the possibility of accuracy. The record cannot be erased. It cannot be edited retroactively. It exists independent of interpretation. Goldman's use of the word despicable is itself a choice worth examining. The word is not analytical. It is emotional. It signals moral condemnation, not factual disagreement. It places the speaker in a position of moral authority. Kennedy's refusal to use similar language is notable. He does not call Goldman despicable. He does not call Goldman a liar. He does not call Goldman corrupt. He calls Goldman's characterization inaccurate. This restraint is either philosophical or tactical. Either way, the effect is the same. Kennedy focuses on the content of the disagreement, not the character of the opponent. This makes his argument stronger. It also makes it less emotionally satisfying. Audiences often prefer moral drama to factual analysis. Kennedy provides analysis. Goldman provides drama. The exchange between Goldman and Kennedy is one moment in one hearing, but it is a representative moment. It shows how power operates in political discourse. It shows how accusations are made, how defenses are offered, how procedural rules shape outcomes. No verdict was rendered in this hearing. No vote was taken on Kennedy's credibility. No resolution was passed condemning or exonerating him. The hearing simply happened. It was recorded. It is available. The audience must decide what it means. What the record does prove is this. An accusation was made. A response was given. The accusation was not withdrawn. The response was not refuted. The exchange ended. Both men moved on. The transcript remains. It is preserved in the congressional record. It can be read by anyone. It can be analyzed by anyone. It can be cited by anyone. It cannot be changed. It cannot be erased. It is part of the permanent documentation of American political discourse in the summer of 2023. The hearing room emptied. The cameras stopped. But the record persists. It waits. It remains available to anyone who seeks it.